Right, so Rishi Sunak, he's a wealthy chap. Between himself and his billionaire heiress wife, Akshata Murthy, they have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, and it's a bit of an ongoing story as to how those business interests of theirs may be encouraged by policy decisions Sunak has taken in government, or at least taking advantage of the system, as it were. We've had numerous examples of smelling a rat when it comes to their finances, and there's been a few issues recently that have come up. But with yet another one coming to my attention this morning, I thought it worth taking a look at just how much the way government policy and the law as it stands seems to be running a little bit too much in their favour, or has been used in their favour, in my opinion. Let's refresh our memories a little bit, though. Up until last year, Sunak's wife held non-dom status, which automatically conjures up images of tax avoidance. But when you consider she was married to the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, lived in the flat above 10 Downing Street, has children here, how was she able to hold basically citizenship in another country when clearly she lived here and it's not that cheap? That non-dom status. It's quite a favourable tax arrangement, the preserve of the rich, and so much of what I'm covering here is only possible for the Sunaks because of their enormous wealth. That also brings up memories of Sunak and that whole green card fiasco of his as well. Now, Akshata Murthy got caught out for this non-dom business, caused great embarrassment, said she'd start paying tax on those family dividends of hers here, dividends Sunak claims to have known nothing about. The man in charge of the country's finances, as he was at the time, not having a clue about the finances in his own home. Sure, Rishi, whatever you say. The Infosys story hasn't gone away, though, either. Later on, it emerged that Infosys was still operating out of Russia after Putin invaded Ukraine and came in for a lot of flack for that, the Sunaks, promising to close operations down, again causing problems for the Sunaks personally, since Akshata Murthy cannot be sure any of her dividend payments did not arise out of business dealings with Russia. After all, these were the problems the Sunaks had to deal with. After Sunak himself, no less, had told business here to strongly reconsider their own business dealings with Russia themselves. The theme of Rishi effectively telling Britain to do as I say and not as I do. And that's a bit of a recurring theme too. Allegedly, Infosys is still operating in Russia to this day, though. It's an Indian-based IT firm. We here in the UK have no jurisdiction over it. The Indian Prime Minister Modi is a Putin supporter. Putin himself has visited Infosys and met Akshata Murthy's father there in the past. He even signed the visitor's book. Our Prime Minister's family could well still be benefiting from Russian trade. Whether they admit it, whether they do so knowingly, is a little bit besides the point when they're telling others here, stop dealing with them. Anyway, let's stop picking on Mrs. Sunak for a minute, though, because Rishi himself has hardly conducted himself glowingly either. There is the ongoing mystery of his links to Moderna and whether Sunak benefited personally from Moderna getting big COVID contracts here. A large number of shares in Moderna, a jab many of us will have had, stung like a bitch when I had it. Did anyone else think it was worse than the other vaccines? I really did think it hurt a lot more. Anyway, I'm just being a wuss. Anyway, a large number of shares, as I was saying, in Moderna are held by a company Sunak helped set up called Thalim Partners. The shares were bought by Thalim a year after Sunak left to return to the UK from the US, where he was based at that time, in order to pursue his political career here. We don't know if Sunak completely pulled out of Thalim. He was a founder. He would certainly, you would think, have invested his own money in setting it up, already wealthy by that point from his investment banking days. But because Thalim were based, or still are based, out of the Cayman Islands, therefore their investors, etc., are all shrouded in the secrecy a tax haven affords them, we don't know whether or not Rishi Sunak is still the beneficiary of these shares via this blind trust of his that he's got. Blind trust being another expensive for the rich setup whereby he can benefit from stakeholdings that he might have without knowing the exact origins of the dividends that get paid out to him. This means he can gain an income off of them whilst avoiding any potential conflict of interest as a politician. However, Sunak will himself know if he's still got a stake in Thalim. He will know, therefore, if he is still benefiting from ties with them. He simply doesn't know with any certainty that he happens to be benefiting from the success of Moderna via Thalim's shares with them. Despite that, though, Moderna are setting up a brand new research facility in Oxfordshire. Here's the rat I was smelling, to develop new vaccines here in the UK. Now, this will certainly benefit Thalim. We just can't be certain it'll definitely be benefiting Sunak. Equally, the government perks towards research and development offered up in Jeremy Hunt's budget earlier this month Any business investing in R&D, such as Moderna, therefore, for every £100 they put in, they get £27 back from the government. And this just happens to have been announced in the budget straight after this move by Moderna was announced. So it does beg the question of how blind Rishi Sunak's blind trust really is. Of course, if we're going to talk about favourable tax arrangements, we can't possibly omit Sunak's recent tax return publication that wasn't, because it was just a summary of his taxes, not a complete breakdown. He made £1.9 million last year. His prime ministerial wage is sofa change to this guy, but £1.6 million of that was from capital gains, just. And when I say just, it's all relative, of course, but just £300,000 of his wealth last year was made from earnings. Yet upon making £1.9 million, he paid just £432,000 in tax. Capital gains is unearned income. It tends to be the wealthy, again, that gain income from capital because they have capital. The rest of us don't, so we don't get such perks, can't afford such things. And if it was taxed like our wages, though, like our earnings are, he would have ended up having to pay nearer £840,000. So, again, it's quite the saving. And it's just something that benefits wealthy, rich people like the Sunaks. All incomes should be taxed at the same rate, surely. When people say the rich pay their share, they pay more. Well, sure, technically, yes, they do pay more. But paying their share? Not really, when as a proportion of their income, as illustrated here, they pay less than we do. So is it any wonder that despite all of this cost of living crisis and all the years of austerity that we've lived through, that they keep getting richer while the rest of us are struggling more and more to make ends meet? And wealth inequality in this country just keeps widening. I'm kind of reminded of the board game Monopoly. We've all played it. Look at all those squares, all those moves on the board, all those examples of capital to gain, as that board represents. And remember that the winner at the end of the game is the only person still able to afford to live there. This cost of living crisis does feel more and more like we're stuck on that board right now. We just keep getting charged for every square we land on these days. And we never seem to ever manage to pass go and collect 200 quid. One of those squares, keeping on that theme, happens to be the electric company, though. And whilst we're all getting screwed over our electric bills right now, where despite the enormous profits being made, the infrastructure struggles, Sunak again has demonstrated just how out of touch he is, even, by personally paying to have the electric grid near his Yorkshire mansion upgraded so that it was capable of heating his brand new swimming pool there. The local pool, like so many leisure centres around the country, facing closure because of the energy costs of heating said pools, and large leisure centres, big buildings as they are, prices have soared. We know that. It used to be years ago that the wealthy like Sunak, knowing they needed to keep ordinary people on side, engaged in what they used to call philanthropy, spending a bit here and there to benefit the general public. These days, it's more about rubbing your wealth in your own constituents' faces. So, of course, having taken 63% of the vote in the 2019 general election up in Richmond and Yorkshire, Sunak could probably eat a baby there and still get re-elected. But let's come back to his wife now, because this is where the latest example of rules for us, not for you, seem to be coming from the Sunaks. During the pandemic, we know Akshata Murthy received some £100,000 in furlough aid for her British business interests. Their gym, Dig Me Fitness, it was called, which was forced to close, even though she was enjoying those non-dom tax advantages still at the time. There's another of her business interests that's come to light now, though, as she is a shareholder in childcare business Koru Kids. Yet Sunak had not declared any conflict of interest over this when Jeremy Hunt's budget offered to incentivise people to go into childminding, with £600 on offer for childminders to take up vacancies and up to £1,200 if they do so via an agency. Like Koru Kids, there are now calls for Sir Laurie Magnus, the chap Sunak himself appointed as his new ethics advisor, or sleaze czar, to investigate all of this. But the trouble is, Magnus can only investigate ministerial code issues with Sunak's say-so. He is not really independent. How long did we have to wait before Nadeem Zahawi's tax affairs got investigated? How much pressure did it take to get Sunak to let Laurie Magnus investigate him? Do you really think any issues relating to Sunak himself will be investigated when Sunak has to give Magnus permission to investigate him? It's an absolute state. And I've no doubt more of what should be outright scandals involving our Prime Minister and his finances will continue to come to light moving forwards. He's definitely one for the few and not for the many. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also, look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on the Linktree link in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.